He imagined silence, not the kind you hear when engines stop or when you're alone in deep space. No. This was the kind of silence that screamed, the kind that wrapped itself around your lungs and made you feel like even breathing was a rebellion. Above the scorched moon of Kyle-Thea, where the remnants of Earth's scattered fleets clung to the shadows of fractured asteroids, that silence preceded the first volley. And then the universe roared. The Xylarian armada emerged like ghosts through folding space. Jagged spires of black-laced silver pierced through dimensional rifts, each dreadnought unfurling like a colossal beast awakening from ancient slumber. Their weapons were not cannons or missiles. They were organisms bred from cosmic matter, engineered to annihilate anything carbon-based with sentient intent. Against them, humanity's last surviving battlecruiser, the luminous Resolve, looked like a relic from a forgotten age. But relics, like myths, sometimes carry the power of legends. On the bridge, Captain Mara Reyes stood tall in the midst of chaos. Her face bore the strain of war, a lattice of thin scars along her temple, a memory of the Battle of Europa's cradle. The dim red glow of emergency lighting cast long shadows on her face as she stared out at the void that had become a killing field. Her officers barked telemetry updates and power reroute commands, their voices rising above the groans of a wounded. "Hull, shield integrity at 27%, called Patel, his fingers a blur over the holotable. Enemy fighters breaching defensive perimeter. Again. Mara didn't flinch. "Deploy squadrons Delta through Kappa. Load magnetic flechette rounds into the point defense turrets. If they get any closer, turn this ship into a goddamn porcupine, all E." Around them, the remnants of Earth's once proud armada drifted like dying embers. The stellar vow was gone, vaporized in a brilliant flash over Enceladus, the Madrid's pride broken in half. One by one, the names of Earth's cities and heroes became tombstones orbiting distant stars. Only the luminous Resolve remained with full combat capacity, and even that was a lie whispered to keep morale from crumbling. "Captain," Patel said more quietly now, "command relay from Sol is dark. We're not getting reinforcements." She turned her head slightly, just enough to make eye contact. "Then we die well." Outside, Ensign Li Wei's fighter screamed through the battlefield, a sleek obsidian black craft with experimental pulse drift engines that left no thermal trail. Her call sign, Dragon's Fury. Her mission, pierce the hull of the enemy flagship, deliver a tachyon destabilizer, and escape before the resulting implosion tore a hole in the local sector. A suicide run if ever there was one. But Wei didn't believe in suicide. She believed in victory, and even if she didn't live to see it. "Target lock engaged," she whispered, breath fogging the inside of her helmet. Her hands trembled, but she held the throttle firm. "This is Dragon's Fury, the commencing breach run on Theta Niner." Her voice cut through the battlefield comms like a blade. On the bridge, Mara closed her eyes for a moment. Just one. She knew that tone. It was the sound of someone who had already made peace with death. And then, impact. A brilliant explosion carved a hole in the alien dreadnought's side, hurling shockwaves of broken tendrils and shrieking plasma into the void. Wei's fighter vanished within the wound she'd created, but the battle wasn't over. Far from it. The Xylarian didn't. Fight with tactics humans understood. They moved in swarm logic, synchronized through quantum resonance across their entire armada. For every dreadnought destroyed, another slipped into the system through wormholes distorted by anti-time folds. Their weapons didn't simply kill. They unwrote. Where they struck, time fractured. Memories faded. Ships vanished, erased from causality as if they had never existed. That was the true terror of the Xylarian. They didn't conquer. They edited. And still, humanity fought. Mara remembered Earth. Not the Earth of maps or mission briefings, but the Earth of laughter. The crack of thunder over Nairobi's savannah during monsoon season. The smell of grilled fish in Tokyo's undercity markets. Her mother's stories about the hummingbirds of Brazil, extinct now like so many things. She remembered the faces of the dead, the weight of their sacrifice. "No surrender," she said aloud, a mantra now. "No surrender," her crew echoed. The luminous resolve, patched together with stolen alien alloys and hope, surged forward. 1,000 hull scars glowed as power rerouted from non-essential systems to weapons. The ship was bleeding, but still alive. Then came the Xylarian message. It wasn't words, it was a feeling, broadcast telepathically into the minds of every human within range, a sense of crushing inevitability, of submission, of being lesser. Mara gritted her teeth. "They want us to kneel." Patel's voice trembled. "Captain, they're in our heads." She stood tall. "Then listen closely." She activated the fleet-wide comms channel, open to all surviving vessels, open even to the Xylarian interceptors, who understood frequencies, but not human defiance. "This is Captain Mara Reyes of the United Earth Resistance. We know what you are, we know what you want, and we don't care. You can erase our ships, you can fracture our time, but you'll never own our spirit. We're not afraid of oblivion because, even in death, humanity remembers. And as long as we remember, we resist." The Xylarian flagship charged its main weapon, a singularity cannon, capable of collapsing entire light minutes into dark matter. The pulse built like a second sun. Mara locked eyes with Patel. "Arm the core." His eyes widened. "You mean detonate?" "Yes." He hesitated only a second. Then, "Yes, Captain." The ship turned toward the enemy flagship, engines screaming, hull screaming, hearts screaming, because sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't the one that kills, it's the one that refuses to kneel. The detonation didn't come. Not yet. As the luminous resolve surged forward on a direct collision course with the Xylarian flagship, space itself seemed to distort around the charging vessel. The singularity cannon at the heart of the enemy ship pulsed brighter, feeding on folded dark mass as it prepared to unleash a world-ending shot. For a moment, all motion ceased, as if the galaxy was holding its breath. Inside the luminous resolve's core chamber, power surged to unsustainable levels. The quantum-stabilized fusion engine, never meant to exceed 60% containment threshold, now screamed past 93. Heat shields liquefied, backup coils fused. If someone had been in that chamber, they would have seen the heart of a sun straining against the shell of steel and gravity-binding plasma. Patel's voice came over the comms. "We're critical. 30 seconds to catastrophic failure. 29, 28. Mara didn't flinch. She stared into the void ahead, at the impossible leviathan that loomed in her path. And yet, something shifted. A flicker. Her hesitation, the Xylarian flagship, an enormous biomechanical monstrosity shaped like an obsidian orchid, pulsing with pale green light, shuddered, not from impact, from confusion. Across the swarm net, a feedback ripple passed. What the humans had done made no sense. They were going to sacrifice the only warship still operational, without achieving a decisive strike, without a guarantee of taking anything else down with it. But humans weren't logical, and that the Xylarian could not comprehend. Aboard the Dragon's Fury, deep inside the Xylarian ship now, Ensign Li Wei staggered through tunnels of gelatinous tendrils and flashing alien glyphs. Her oxygen was running low. The magnetic boots on her exosuit fought to stabilize her footing as she descended deeper into the ship's central cortex. Above her, the creature ship shrieked in pain. Yes, pain. She could feel it now. The ship wasn't just alive, it was aware. "This isn't a battleship," she whispered into her log recorder. "It's a brain. They're piloting through. Thought? Every dreadnought we've seen, they're neural extensions. This is their core mind." She pressed on, clutching the cylindrical payload, no bigger than a thermos, yet humming with destructive promise. The tachyon destabilizer would interrupt space-time continuity within a 2-kilometer radius, forcing any quantum-synchronized systems into chaos. That meant navigation, propulsion, even memory. "They won't know how to function," she breathed, more to herself now. "They'll forget how to fight." And that's when she saw it, the neural sanctum, a chamber unlike anything human eyes had witnessed, a sphere of translucent energy suspended mid-air, swirling with impossible colors, ultraviolet, and something beyond visible light entirely. It pulsed with thought. She didn't hear words, but she felt meaning, a presence, alien and ancient and terribly curious. She stepped forward. It responded. Her mind flooded with images, millions per second. Civilizations consumed, species assimilated, and erased. Stars dying like candles snuffed out. Not out of malice, but efficiency. The Xylarian didn't destroy for conquest. They destroyed for order. To them, emotion was entropy, individuality, a flaw. And yet, she was here, standing before their core. A speck of defiance wrapped in blood and metal, and she was seen. Then it spoke, not in voice, in a feeling, like the weight of the ocean pressing against the ribs of her soul. Why resist? The words carved themselves across her thoughts, burning away fear. She stood taller. Because we're not yours to control, she said aloud. Because surrender isn't peace, it's erasure. The entity hesitated. In that pause, she slid the destabilizer into its slot. Goodbye, she whispered. Back aboard the luminous Resolve, Patel's countdown hit 0. Nothing exploded, instead a pulse. The tachyon destabilizer had activated inside the alien flagship first. A ripple of blinding blue energy surged out, severing neural pathways across. The Xylarian's ship mined. Across the battlefield, dreadnoughts froze mid-fire. Some spun aimlessly, others began retreating without orders. The singularity cannon, moments from firing, collapsed into a flickering black mass, then crumbled into particles as the control systems forgot what they were supposed to do. "We did it," Patel whispered. Mara exhaled slowly. "Full spread, target their power nodes. Take them while they're stunned." The last functional turrets aboard the Resolve roared to life. Twin plasma streams burst from the keel, carving through the stunned armada. Across the remains of the human fleet, surviving ships took heart. The message was clear. The enemy could be hurt, and more importantly, they could be confused. Across all frequencies, human vessels re-established comms. The battered cruiser Aegis Dawn fired its railguns for the first time in 2 days. The Vanguard Eternal, a corvette once considered dead in orbit around the Kael'thir debris field, came online and launched drone swarms. The Resistance, those few who had survived, surged with newfound fury. But victory wasn't secure. Not yet. Because the Xylarian were adapting. Inside their wounded flagship, new neural pathways began weaving themselves. Alien tendrils regenerated. Ships that had frozen began to twitch. The tachyon disruption was temporary. The hive was awakening again, and angrier than ever before. "We bought minutes," Mara said. "Maybe less." She turned to Patel. "Open a channel to all ships, encrypted, old Earth protocol." He nodded. "Ready." She faced the transmission. "Toad?" Her voice was hoarse but unwavering. "This is Captain Reyes. They're coming back online. This is our last window. You know what we've got to do." She stared into the display. It flickered with the faces of surviving captains, tired, bloodied, scarred. No one else is coming. No gods, no reinforcements. Just us. But this moment, right now, will be remembered. Not because we won, but because we chose to fight, knowing we might not. We're drawing the line. We're saying we are not perfect. We are not united, but we are human. And we will never bow. Silence followed. Then, one by one, ships aligned beside the luminous Resolve. The fleet, what remained, charged, and behind them, on the surface of the Xylarian flagship, Wei watched. The final countdown on her oxygen HUD ticked toward 0. "Worth it," she whispered. Then everything turned white. The light faded, and in its place came fire. The Xylarian flagship fractured not with a bang, but with a whimpering tremor, a psychic scream that spilled across the battlefield like waves through the ocean of space. Ships, still linked to the hive consciousness, reeled, their formations collapsing like broken marionettes. Neural threads snapped. Synthetic minds spasmed. Even the stars themselves seemed to recoil at the agony of a being so massive, so ancient, forced to feel. For the first time in perhaps 1,000,000,000 years, the Xylarian had experienced pain, and humanity had delivered it. Captain Mara Reyes watched the rippling wave of blue-white light scatter enemy ships like dying embers. Plasma trails, shattered hulls, organic metal writhing in zero gravity, and behind it all, the crack in the sky where the Xylarian flagship had hovered, now a swirling maelstrom of debris and dimensional rupture. The tachyon implosion hadn't just torn through the flagship, it had ripped a wound in the Xylarians' interlinked consciousness, a void in their hive memory. The center was gone. But it wasn't enough. Even without centralized command, the enemy adapted. Dreadnoughts realigned, now driven by secondary cognition nodes, distributed intelligence relays deep within their fleets. They came not as a coordinated swarm, but as beasts driven by instinct. Raw, primal fury. The Luminous. Resolve, bruised and bleeding, had taken point, rallying the scattered remnants of the resistance fleet around its hull. The Aegis Dawn, its right wing scorched black, covered the flanks with her kinetic cannons. The Vanguard Eternal, barely holding together, loosed a final barrage of seeker mines across the enemy's path. The few surviving drones from the Marsborn sentries formed a moving wall of fragmentation beams between the enemy and the core fleet. And then, battle was joined again. Imagine the skies of Kyle Thier igniting with flares of multicolored plasma. Missiles screaming past one another like comet trails, human ships dancing between destruction and deliverance, every maneuver a gamble with death. One wrong move, and 1,000 lives vanished into the void. Yet they pressed forward, not because they thought they would survive, but because someone had to make the Xylarian remember what fear felt like. In the engine deck of the Luminous Resolve, damage control crews fought fires with bare hands and burst extinguishers. Oxygen levels dropped below safe thresholds. Cooling. Systems failed, yet no one stopped. A young engineer named Juno, her face streaked with blood, climbed a collapsing scaffold to manually reroute power to the ship's lateral thrusters. "She flies," she gasped into her wristcom, "or we all die. Choose." Power returned. The ship turned, dodging an energy lance that would have cored the main reactor. On the bridge, Patel winced as a feedback spike surged through the targeting array. "Captain, external defenses are collapsing. Shields are gone." Mara nodded grimly. "Then we use armor and rage." "Incoming message," Patel said, surprise creeping into his voice. "Not human. Xylarian, broadcasting." "One of our old languages?" Mara frowned. "Put it through." A hiss. Then a voice, fractured, layered, familiar. "You remember, we do not. You burn. For nothing. Join us. End suffering. End chaos. Be whole." It wasn't a threat. It was an offer. An ancient code buried deep in pre-fall archives. Somehow the Xylarian had scavenged humanity's history, their linguistics, their poetry, even their religions, and they were trying to appeal to something. The offer wasn't conquest. It was peace. Mara's hand tightened on the command. Rail. She remembered the failed treaties, the dying embers of the Sol Accords, how Earth had tried once to coexist with the greater galactic collectives, and how every time, individuality was the cost. Identity became dilution, culture became code, and humanity in every timeline vanished. "No," she said aloud. Patel turned. "Captain, broadcast this. Loop it to all enemy channels." She walked to the comm node. Her voice was a steel whisper. "You came to break us, but you only taught us what we're fighting for. We will not be absorbed, we will not forget. We are flawed, yes, but we are free, and freedom is worth every sacrifice." A moment of silence. Then, like thunder across the stars, the Xylarian charged all at once. 37 dreadnoughts, stripped of strategic finesse, hurled themselves toward the Luminous Resolve in a last-ditch attempt to wipe out the source of disruption. Their weapons were no longer precise. They were vengeful, and the human fleet had no defenses left. "Brace for impact," Mara shouted. "All ships, scatter." But it was too late. The first wave of enemy ships slammed through the outer ring of the formation, obliterating drones, swatting gunships from the sky like insects. The Aegis Dawn took a direct hit and began to tear apart at the seams. Internal. Combustion from its ammo bay sent flaming debris into the heart of the human line. And the Vanguard Eternal, already burning, made one final maneuver. It turned. Engines flaring red-hot, it collided directly with the lead Xylarian vessel, igniting. A chain reaction that consumed both ships in a starbright explosion. One pilot, one ship, one choice. On the bridge of the Resolve, Mara's voice was hollow. Vanguard is gone, and yet something changed. From the remnants of the Vanguard's wreckage emerged a signal, faint, chaotic, encrypted with an ancient Earth algorithm. Kepler read protocol. Patel's eyes widened. "Captain, that's not a distress signal," she turned sharply. "What is it?" "It's a summons, because Vanguard had sent a final message. Not to the fleet, not to Earth, but to the ones who lived beneath Earth." The Kepler read protocol, a transmission so old, so dangerous, it was erased from Earth's digital libraries after the Titan mutiny in the late 22nd century. Only a handful of captains even knew it existed. It wasn't just a signal. It was a key, a coded request to awaken the last defense Earth swore never to use again. The ones beneath Earth, the sleepers. Before the Xylarian War, before even the colonization of the Kepler systems, humanity had experimented with merging biological consciousness and quantum AI. The result? A class of weapons so advanced, so sentient they were exiled to the edge of known space, sealed beneath the crust of Mars, Io, and Europa, in black stasis vaults. They were called the Echo Titans, half machine, half mind, fully uncontrollable, and the Vanguard Eternal had just called them home. Far below the luminous Resolve, on the rusted surface of Mars's southern pole, something ancient awoke. Dust shifted, ice cracked, a tectonic tremor spread through the crust, and then a spire, blacker than night, risen from beneath the regolith like the fang of a buried god. From it a pulse, instantaneous, faster than light. Across space, the remnants of the human fleet received the encoded burst, and so did the Xylarian. It was not a word, nor a threat. It was a presence. Back aboard the luminous Resolve, Patel stared in horror as new contacts appeared on the sensors. Not Xylarian, not human, something else. Mara's breath caught. "Are those—" The holodisplay flickered and resolved. 5 massive constructs appeared at the edge of the Calthea system, each one the size of a moon, yet shaped like no moon ever seen. Spindled appendages, fusion cores burning in geometric patterns, a skeletal grace to their motion. They moved like things underwater, slow, patient, ancient. Then one spoke. "It's—" Voice didn't come over comms, it came inside. "You called, we answer. Directive. Human continuity. All threats will be neutralized, all debts paid." The Xylarian fleet hesitated. These were not like humans. They didn't feel. They didn't burn. And yet, they remembered the Titans. Echoes from a war so distant that even the stars had forgotten it. The Xylarian had faced them once before, back when Earth was still a whisper on the galactic wind. They had not forgotten the pain. The Echo Titans entered the battlefield with no fanfare, no speeches, just annihilation. The first Titan, designation Omen, unleashed a lattice of gravimetric shears that folded enemy ships inward like crushed cans, not explosions, collapses. Space itself betrayed the Xylarian, turning against them. The second Wrath ignited its fusion spinal core, firing an energy lance so dense it punched a hole through 4 dreadnoughts in a single continuous beam. The third memory did something far more terrifying. It infected. Using quantum link chains, it uploaded recursive logic loops into the Xylarian neural mesh, forcing them to experience again and again every failure, every death, every horror they had inflicted. The Xylarian mind writhed in silent agony. Ships began colliding, weapons fired into their own fleets, a collapse of cohesion. The war was over in 7 minutes. Of the 37 remaining enemy dreadnoughts, Only 2 survived the initial Titan barrage. They fled, silent, directionless, broken. Not defeated, shattered. Aboard the luminous Resolve, no one cheered. They simply watched. The Echo Titans did not speak again. They did not acknowledge the fleet. Their task complete, they turned slowly as if sleepwalking through space and vanished into the darkness beyond Kale Thier's orbit, the same way they had come. "Where are they going?" Patel asked quietly. Mara stared at the empty sky. "They go where weapons go when peace isn't ready for them." And for a long time, there was silence. The remains of the human fleet began rescue operations. Thousands of escape pods were recovered, damaged ships towed to the far moons for repair. A memorial channel was opened across all frequencies, broadcasting the names of the fallen. Li Wei's name was first. Captain Reyes recorded her log. This battle, it wasn't just a victory, it was a statement that humanity, flawed, chaotic, loud, emotional, will never surrender its soul. The Xylarians saw us as a virus, something to sterilize. What they didn't see is that resistance is written into our code, not because we love war, but because we love choice, and we will fight for it. Always. She paused, then added, almost to herself, "They'll be back someday. Something else will come, and we'll be different by then, but not less." Outside her viewport, the stars shimmered, quiet, watching. Because across the galaxy, that message, carried on silent frequencies, in rogue AIs and smuggled memory cores, had begun to spread. Humanity does not bow. Not to gods, not to machines, not to destiny. The war may be over, but the legend was just beginning. If you enjoyed this story, do us a favor. Like the video, share it with a friend who loves sci-fi, and drop a comment with your favorite moment or theory. Which HFY, humanity fuck yeah story should we explore next? Tell us below, and remember, the stars belong to those who dare. End transmission.